So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now, we stopped over here. Okay, so last week we mentioned about wasayn al-insan, and we talked about how important it is respecting parents and the difficulty the mother's gone through in taking care of that child in the time of pregnancy and then after, and then all of that deserves the appreciation of the parents, and Allah has coined His own appreciating Him and appreciating the parents together. Okay, and this is something which is very, very important, like we said last week. Now, after this, Allah mentions, so we read this verse and then we look into them. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ ثُمَّ إِلَيَّ مَرْجِعُكُمْ فَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ, and if they both force you, عَلَىٰ, to ascribe partners with me, ma laysa, about or whom you have no knowledge of, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, then do not obey them, remain with them in this world with fairness and follow the path of the ones or the one who turned himself to us, then to us or to me, turned himself to me, then to me is your returning. So I will tell you, or I shall tell you, bima, with what you used to do, or I will tell you, I will inform you what you had been doing. Okay, so this is the next part of the verse now. Now again, remember, like we said last week, we said that there was a break in the advice. So there was Luqman alayhi salam's advice, then all of a sudden Allah, He mentioned this. So this isn't part of Luqman alayhi salam's advice. Allah has deliberately brought this sentence in the middle of the advice. Okay, and this, like we said last week, this is what was called istitrad. Istitrad means that when you're speaking and you say, like, whilst I'm talking about this, I might as well just talk about this. So sometimes one topic goes from one topic to another topic. So whilst Luqman alayhi salam was talking about the importance of not attributing anyone to Allah or doing any shirk, Allah mentions this. And we said that there's many, many benefits in this. And one of the major themes that we can see from this is that Allah is talking about the respect that a person should show to their parents. Now, the question is, before we continue, why is it so important at this stage to show respect of parents? Why in the middle of the advice? So Luqman alayhi salam's advice is going on, all of a sudden Allah talks about the importance of respecting parents. And the advice has nothing really to do with respecting parents, but all of a sudden Allah brings this in. Any ideas why? No? Okay, this is to do with Luqman alayhi salam. He was the father, and his son, we don't know his son's name, but a person's advice will only be taken seriously if you have lots of respect for them. If you have no respect for someone and they're sitting there for an hour, 2 hours, just going on and on and on, giving you advice, you're not really going to listen to them. So Allah, in the advice, He brings the importance of respecting the parents. So once you listen to this, once you read this, once you understand how important the parents are, then Luqman alayhi salam's advice to his son makes more sense. And it has more weight. So this is why Allah brings this in the middle. Now, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ. The word jahada, what's the root letters of jahada? Any ideas? The root letters of jahada. Very good. Okay, so jim, ha, and dal. Okay, and jim, ha, dal, what does that mean? Whenever it comes into a word, what does it mean? Okay, what does that mean? To struggle, very good. To do something with a lot of force, with a lot of struggle, with a lot of difficulty. That's what juhud means, jahada. It means, for example, like if you've got a whole big box of books, you've got a big box of books, and these big box of books you have to carry, okay, upstairs. So you got to go up the stairs with these big box of books. So carrying these big books upstairs is not going to be easy. In Arabic, you would call it a juhud. You would use the words jim, ha, dal with it because it's something very difficult. So likewise, in Arabic, any word that contains jim, ha, dal always has lots of struggle behind it, lots of effort. And struggle comes in several things. So struggle comes in your health, and struggle comes in your wealth, and struggle comes mentally. Yeah, so you have three types of struggle that person, or three types of forces or energy a person has to exert when it comes to struggle. Sometimes a person has to exert health, yeah, physical. Yeah, sometimes it leads to that person's physically. Sometimes you have to exert wealth. Okay, so exerting wealth is also something which is very important. And sometimes you have to exert mental. So these are three types of struggle that a person has to do generally in life. So وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَى. Now in Arabic, the word jahada, it comes on a pattern. So you have verbs in Arabic that come on different patterns. For example, like if you said, if you, let's say, you took the word Ain Lam Mim. Ain Lam Mim means knowledge. But if you take that word and you say Ain Lam Mim and you put a shad on there, it means to teach. And if you take Ain Lam Mim and you were to put it into this form, Ta'allama, now it means to learn. And if you take Ain Lam Mim and you just leave it as it is, Alima, it means to know. Yeah, so verbs themselves, depending on what kind of structure they take in Arabic, their meaning is also influenced by that. So jahada, it comes from the pattern. It comes from the pattern of jahada yujahidu. Jahada yujahidu. And anything that comes on that pattern, it has a meaning of struggling against someone. It usually has the meaning of struggling against someone. So there's always a second party there somewhere. Second party may be doing something, they may not be doing something, but you're struggling with them. So okay, jahadaka. Okay, next word, we'll come back to that. Tushrika. Tushrika. What are the root letters of this word? Tushrika. Okay, shin ra kaf. And what does it mean? Literally, what does it mean? Okay, sharaka means to share actually. Yeah, shin ra kaf, it actually means to share. Literally sharing. So this is why in Arabic a sharik is called a partner, because he shares with you. Yeah, so sharaka, sharik. sharik, all these words, they come from the meaning of sharing. So again, if this word comes in this specific pattern, if this word comes in this pattern of what we say, ashraka yushriku, then it has the meaning of associating partners. So tushriku bi means to associate partners with me, tushriku bi. Okay, let's move to the next one then. So laysa laka bihi ilmun fala tuti'huma. Okay, the word tuti' as well, it comes from the root letters ta, waw, ain. Okay, ta, waw, ain, which means obedience. Okay, or it means something that easily bends around something, very flexible. So ta'a yuti'u means to obey. Okay, another word, sabil. We won't be able to do all the words, otherwise it'll take quite a long time. So sabil, anyone know what the literal meaning of sabil is? Anyone know? Sabil? No, you guys haven't had your breakfast yet. Come on. Sabil means aid. No, not aid. Sabil actually means, it's used for, you know when rain comes down from the sky? Yeah, when rain comes down from the sky, that path that rain takes is called a sabil. So when rain comes down from the sky and the drop reaches you, the path that that drop has taken, that's called a sabil, guys. Yeah, and a sabil is usually a path which is very easy to follow. You know, sometimes like a main road is easy to follow, you call that a sabil. But sometimes the path is very difficult to follow, you get lost. The path isn't that clear, or it's got lots of obstacles on there. You don't call that a sabil then. Yeah, then you call it a najid. Najid. When it becomes difficult to walk upon, it's called a najid. So anyway, sabil is a path that's easy to follow. Okay, next. Okay, unabbi'ukum. What are the root letters of this? I mentioned this before as well. Unabbi'u. What are the root letters? Noon, waw, ba. No, not noon, waw, ba. Alif, noon, ba. No, not alif, noon, ba. The root letters are actually noon, ba, and hamza. Yeah, it looks that shadda is not representing the root letters. Okay, so the original letters are noon, ba, hamza. And noon, ba, hamza, what does it come for? Noon, ba, hamza comes for something which is very important. Important news, important information. So naba'a is only used for news that's very, very important, significant. So unabbi'ukum. Okay, bima kuntum ta'madun. Alright, let's look at these verses then. Now remember, when you study Quran, when you study Arabic language, very important to know the root meanings of words. If you don't know the root meanings of words, then you're just guessing what the translator or what the dictionary has given you. Yeah. So, for example, like if you took the word tushriku and you said it means to associate partners, all you've done is you've taken the opinion of a linguist and you added it there. But if you know the root meanings, then you know the Arabs use these particular words for this exact meaning. So once you know the exact meaning of the words, you can't go wrong. You can't make a mistake in the translation. Okay, so وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ. Now, previously Allah was talking about the parents now. The parents have to be shown full respect. Yeah, however, obviously, we show them full respect, but a time may come where the parents, they command the child to commit something which is wrong, to disobey Allah. And the greatest disobedience to Allah is obviously shirk. So here, Allah does not use the word وَإِنْ أَمَرَاكَ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي, if they command you to do shirk with me. He didn't say that. He said وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ, which is obviously more severe. So one is, parents say to you, do shirk with Allah. Do shirk. That's a command. And one is they do jihad with you. They do jihad with you, meaning that they force you, they pressurize you, they do whatever it takes. They use their health, their wealth, their mental capacity to make you do shirk. So jahadaka, it has more of an intense meaning. So in other words, Allah is saying that if they use all their efforts in trying to force you to do shirk with me, then you don't obey them. La tuti'huma. Now, if they force you to do shirk with me and you're not supposed to obey them, what if they command you? Or what if they advise you? Or what if they encourage you? So in all those conditions as well, you don't do shirk with Allah Ta'ala. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said that لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There is no obedience of the creation when it comes to disobeying Allah. In other words, whoever it may be, anyone who commands you to disobey Allah, you don't obey them. You don't obey them at all. Unless one situation the Quran mentions, if you're at gunpoint, they're going to kill you. So if someone's going to kill you, that's another situation. But so long as they're not going to kill you, you're not going to be killed by it, then you do not obey them at all in that particular issue only. Even though they brought you up, even though they carried you, even though they took care of you, even though they deserve your full respect and courtesy and appreciation. وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ. Now in the Quran, when ala is used, ala has the meaning of from above, ala. Okay, and in the Quran this sentence has been used in two ways. In one surah Allah mentions وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ لِتُشْرِكَ. لِتُشْرِكَ. So ala has been used here and li has been used there. Now the difference between li and ala is, anyone know? Li and ala. So in one verse, instead of saying this, it says وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ li. There's a lam there, li. There's no ala and. Any ideas? The difference between lam? There are two prepositions, these are harf jar. Why is lam used? Okay, lam is so too good. For ala on top, alright. Look, if you say something like this in Arabic, if you say nasartuka, and then you said li, nasartuka li tasma, nasartuka li tasma. That means that I helped you because I wanted the end result to be that you listen. In other words, the whole aim of my helping you is so that litasma. In the end, I wanted you to help me. In other words, you might have helped me, you might have not helped me. But in the end, that's what I wanted. Yeah, so this is lam, what you call lam lil ghaya. In other words, the end result. That's what I wanted. If you use ala though, ala has a different effect. In other words, ala comes with the meaning of condition. So ala would mean this: I helped you, ala, on the condition that you listen. In other words, the end result is not listening. It's actually the condition. The condition is listening. In other words, if you don't listen, I'm not going to help you. So here, وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ. So if they do jihad with you, if they force you, if they struggle against you, ala, on the condition that you do shirk. In other words, the whole reason why they're doing all of this is the condition that they want you to do shirk with Allah. In other words, this is more severe than li. So li is that they try their best so that you do shirk. Yeah, so that wouldn't be a problem there, because then it's your choice at the end of the day. But ala means this, that they struggle with you, trying to forcing you to do shirk. So in other words, ala an tushrika becomes the condition now of jihad. That's the whole aim, that is. So it's more than just li, it's more than just a purpose, it's actually condition as well. So وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ, if they both struggle with you to make you to commit shirk of me, مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ ilm, about whom you have no knowledge. Now you see, about whom you have no knowledge, this is referring to the shirk. In other words, let's say they force the child, they say to the child, look, you have to you have to worship this tree. Yeah, you gotta worship this tree. That's what they're saying. You have to worship this tree. Now, you have no knowledge about this tree. In other words, you have no knowledge that this tree can do anything for you, or it can harm you, or it can benefit you, or it can provide for you, or it can create you. You have no knowledge at all about that. In other words, Allah is saying here that you are not allowed to associate with Allah something you have no knowledge at all about. So that means, if you have no knowledge about this, and you're not allowed to associate with Allah, imagine you have knowledge about it, then you're not allowed to associate that to Allah anyway. Yeah, so this tree, you have no knowledge about this tree being associated to Allah or anything like that. So you're not allowed to worship it. So if you knew that only Allah is the one that needs to be worshipped, and if you knew that this tree has no power at all, then that should be more deserving for you only to worship Allah Ta'ala. So Allah says, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِعِلْمٍ, if they strive and force you to make partners with me, that which you have no knowledge at all about, then you don't obey them. And likewise, if they command you to do shirk with me, something you have knowledge about, in other words, you've studied, you understand the oneness of Allah, you understand that Allah Ta'ala has no partners, you understand nothing can be like Allah Ta'ala, then over there you shouldn't be worshipping at all anyway. Okay, so now why is it mentioning this for لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ? Any ideas? Why is it mentioning that you have no knowledge about it? Okay, the reason it's mentioning it is because the situation is a situation of parents and child. Usually the parents tell the child to do something, and the child, when it's young, it doesn't know why it's doing it. It will grow up doing something. It won't know at all. Like some places you have around the world where, the parents, they force the child to wear certain types of things around their wrists, around their ankles, around their necks, and certain things. The child has no idea why this is. It's just like a ritual that the parents have put the children into. So this is why usually you get this situation. Yeah, so وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِعِلْمٍ. In other words, when you grow up and you're doing things but you don't know why you're doing it for, and it's going against the laws of Allah Ta'ala, then you shouldn't do it. Something that you should never do. فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, then don't obey them. Over there, you're allowed not to obey your parents. However, remember, here the situation can arise where a person becomes violent with their parents. They're trying to force him to worship something besides Allah. They're trying to force him to do shirk. They're trying to force him to commit sin. They're trying to force him to drink alcohol or do other things as well. All of them come under that. So then in that case, the child might become violent. So فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, do not obey them. However, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Now sahib, anyone know where the root letters of sahiba? What does that mean? It means company. Sad haba, it means to accompany something. So sahib comes from the same pattern as jahada. Yeah, jahada. And what did we say about the pattern of jahada yujahidu? What meaning does that pattern give? Yes, that there's two parties involved. So sahib huma, sahib, it means mutually accompany them. Sahib huma, mutually accompany them, be with them. Fi dunya ma'rufa. In other words, even if the parents are non-Muslims, even if the parents are commanding you to do shirk, even if they're telling you to do something bad, don't be rude to them. Don't be harsh to them. Don't be bad to them. Sahibhum. And suhbah means be in the company of. These are people that don't break ties with them. Be in their company. Fid dunya, in worldly matters. In worldly matters meaning not in religious matters. Because obviously they're commanding you in their religious matters. You don't follow them in their religious matters. So when it comes to worldly matters, you be kind to them. Sitting with them, speaking with them, taking them places, buying them gifts. Be very nice and kind to them. Sahibhuma fid dunya. Ma'rufan. Ma'ruf. Anyone know what this word means? Ma'ruf. Anyone know where it's from? Okay, it's from Arafah. What does that mean? Arafah. Any ideas what Arafah means? Okay, Arafah means to know. Okay, to know. To be aware of. To know, to become aware of. To acknowledge. So, Sahib huma fi dunya ma'rufa. Now, this word has a fatha on there. And in the Arabic language, these vowels at the end of the words, they represent different meanings. So, sometimes when a word has a fatha on there, it comes for the meaning of an object. Like if I say to you, Akala, Zayd ate tufahatan. Zayd ate an apple. So you put a fatha on tufahatan because that's the thing that's being eaten. That's the object. So because that's the thing being eaten, we give it a fatha. There's also other reasons. Yeah, there's also other reasons why it could be. So here, it would be hal, condition. In other words, the condition of your accompanying them should be such, it should be ma'ruf, it should be known, it should be recognized. So in other words, what it means is that in the Quran, Allah refers to certain things as being recognized. Like if I say to you, you know, if you're walking down the road and you see someone helping an old lady cross the road, you know that's something right, isn't it? It's not defined. No, you haven't learned it anywhere in any books, but you know it's right. If you see someone fall down on the street and someone quickly goes to pick them up, you know it's right. If you see someone picking up litter from the floor and putting in a bin, you know it's right. If you see someone asking for directions and someone giving them directions, you know it's right. So all these things are known things. In other words, good things in life, the good things in life are of two types. One is things that the Sharia tells us, that Islam tells us, like for example, praying, fasting, all these things. And one is things that naturally we know. We naturally know that these things are right. These things which are naturally right in society, Allah calls them ma'ruf. These things are ma'ruf things. So in other words, Allah says, Sahibhuma fi dunya ma'rufan. In other words, your accompanying them should be in such a condition that the accompanying should be something well known. In other words, if anyone was to see you sitting with your parents talking to them, they would think you're doing a good thing. So that means that when you speak to them, you should speak in such a way that you would like other people to speak to their parents. When you sit with them, you should sit with them in such a way that you'd like other people to sit with their parents. When you buy them gifts, you should buy them in such a way that you'd like other people to do. So in other words, the way you should treat your parents is the way you think other people should treat their parents as well. So this is ma'ruf, and how society, how the society deems that action to be good. So sahibhuma, be kind to them, be good to them in the dunya, ma'rufan, in such a way that this is recognized as goodness. Again, So this is actually jihad on your part, if you think about it. They are doing jihad against you to make you do shirk with Allah. And on the opposite side, you're actually being kind to them. Yeah, so that's very hard, that is. Someone throws stones at you, and you throw, flowers back at them. You give them gifts. So this is why obedience to the parents is something that's very, very hard. And on the other hand, it's very, very rewarding. So this verse, it actually sums up the qualities of a good believer. A true believer is someone who controls all of their emotions, their religious emotions, their personal emotions, everything, and they follow what Allah Ta'ala says here. Sahibhuma fi dunya ma'rufan. Now look at that. Even though they're mushriks, even though they are disbelievers, even though they're active disbelievers, they're actually forcing their kids to do shirk with Allah Ta'ala. Allah still reminds them of, what did your mom do for you? Yeah, she carried you. And even if she was a disbeliever, she still carried you, she still took care of you, still went through all the difficulties for you. So be grateful to them. So in other words, the Quran is teaching us about how to show parents, wherever they may be from, whatever color, background, religious orientation they may be, you have to show them full kindness. And in the Quran also, Allah mentions you shouldn't even, suck your teeth at them. Never say uff to them. Yeah, don't lower your kindness, your mercy, your humility to them. Sahibhuma fi dunya ma'rufa. Anyway, that's a very difficult verse to act upon, but it's something that people should try time and time again. So imagine those people who break contact with their parents, or don't meet their parents after so many days or so many weeks. Imagine their situation. Would you like it if someone else was to do that to their parents? We wouldn't like it. So we shouldn't do it to our own parents. So sahibhuma fi dunya ma'rufan, Allah says. وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ. Now, in the Arabic language, ittabi', anyone know where it comes from? Ittabi', taba'a, what does that mean? Okay, what's the difference between tabi'a and ittaba'a? Bab ifti'al. So tabi'a, ittaba'a. What's the difference? Anyone know? Okay, the difference is that tabi'a just means, definitely good should prevail in all our interactions. Tabi'a means to follow generally, just any type of following. Ittaba, it means close following. To follow closely. To follow very, very closely, you use the word ittaba. So Allah deliberately brings this word here, and He says, وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ. Follow the path of the one who anaba ilayya. Anaba, it means to return. Anaba. Anaba, yunibu, munib, someone who goes back, who returns. So Allah says here, follow the path of the one who returns to me. Now, why is it saying this all of a sudden? Talking about parents, respect to parents, disobeying them when they command you to do a sin. Why is it saying, ittabi' sabila man anaba ilayya? Why is it saying, follow the path of the one who returns to me? Okay, you're being told to do shirk. Good. Okay, so follow the ones who return to Allah. Excellent, very good. So ittabi' sabila man anaba means, when it comes to worldly issues, then show full respect to your parents. This is when it comes to worldly matters. When it comes to religious matters, then you don't follow your parents in that issue. In other words, the parents are not necessarily followed when it comes to religion. The person you follow in religion is the way of the one who returns back to Allah. Anaba ilayya. Now, anaba yunibu munib is where someone returns back from going wrong. So after a person goes wrong, goes off the track, and they come back, that's called inaba. So Allah says, follow the path of those. So this includes all the prophets, this includes all the pious, this includes anyone who is, you know, on the path of Allah, and Sirat al-Mustaqim. Anyone who is on that, you follow that. Ittabi' sabila man anaba ilayya. Now, here Allah uses the word ilayya, to me. He doesn't say to us or to Allah. Anyone know why? Why is it single times one? Sometimes Allah says in the Quran, ittabi' sabila man anaba ilayna. Follow the path of the one who returns to us. To me, why to me? Excellent, very good, mashallah. So this is to do with Tawheed. Whenever Allah mentions about shirk and the oneness of Allah in the Quran, Allah always brings a single word for Himself. Yeah, single. In other words, that only me and me only should be worshipped. So وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ. Now look, this اتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ. Allah could have said this. Allah could have said, follow the path of the prophets. Simple as that. He could say, اتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. Or he could have said, اتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ الرُّسُلِ. Follow the path of the messengers. Follow the path of the pious. اتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ الصَّالِحِينَ. But why did he say the one who returns to me? Why return to me? Any ideas? Why this idea why does Allah want to highlight the emphasis on returning? Okay, possibly common person. Basic idea of not doing shirk, okay? But there's something else. اتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ. Yeah, anything else? I will judge you. Okay, no, you're all going around it. It's actually to do with why do you come back for? Why do you return? Those who realize accountability, those who realize their mistakes. Very good. So in other words, follow the path of those people who are not necessarily infallible. Yeah, they make mistakes, they make error, but they come back to me, they realize their errors, and they come back towards me. Yeah, so following in the way of, pious prophets are free from mistakes, obviously, but others are not free from mistakes. They make mistakes. So don't worry about that. The main thing is that you come back to Allah Ta'ala. So ittabi' sabila man anaba ilayya. And this is our fitrah. Our natural way is to be with Allah, is to be obedient to Allah. And so if a person ever sins or errors or makes a mistake, then they can easily come back to Allah. There's always hope for that person to return. So follow the path. And following the path also has comfort in there as well, because we're insan, and insan likes society and likes social gatherings. Then ittabi' sabila man anaba ilayya means there's a path of people who return back to Allah. There's a way of life. So follow that way of life. Just like, let's say there's a person and he's been walking and he's been trying to get somewhere, and you've just started that path now. So for you, all you have to do is look at his footsteps, look at what kind of lifestyle he led to follow his path. So Allah wants us to look at the lives of those who came before us, look at the lives of the pious, and follow in the ways that they had. Why? Because in their lives, they had difficulties as well. You study about the lives of the Sahaba, you study about the lives of the Prophets, you study about the lives of all other people, that they had parents, they had difficulties with their parents, they had issues with people trying to force them to commit sin, maybe even force them to commit shirk. And how did they deal with it? How did they go about it? What kind of qualities did they have? So ittabi' sabila man anaba ilayya. Follow the path of those who return to me. Then Allah says, ثُمَّ إِلَيَّ مَرْجِعُكُمْ. Okay, ثُمَّ إِلَيَّ مَرْجِعُكُمْ. And then to me is all of your return. To me is all of your return. Now, why does Allah say this for? To me is all of your return. Why mention that straight after following the path of those who return back to Allah. Very good, good and bad, everyone will go back to Allah. Anything else? Judgment Day, excellent. Yeah, so he's talking about Judgment Day, talking about accountability, talking about... In other words, what this is talking about here is this is the measure for our actions in our life. In other words, if a person lives their life and they're going to die, RIP, that's where they die, then it means the life that they live after death, that is going to be the measure of how you lived your life in this world. That's where you're going to be questioned. That's where you're going to be asked. That's where you're going to be taken to account for. So in other words, every single thing that you do in this life, every single thing you do in this life, the purpose of this life, in other words, is on the Day of Judgment to be questioned about it. So to me, is your return is like an implicit way. It's an indirect way of saying, I'm going to question you about everything you've done in this dunya. Just like a teacher says to the student, says that, right, you know, at the end of the week, you're going to come back to me. You're going to report back to me at the end of the week. End of the week, come to my office. So end of the week, come to my office, that's a scary thing for students. Yeah, they're always thinking to themselves, what is he going to say to me? So all that week they behave really good. So likewise Allah says, ilayya, to me. He mentioned to me over here as well. And again to me. Yeah, oneness. In other words, only to me you're going to return. You're not going to return to your parents. If you obey them, you're not going to return to them. And you're not going to return to anyone else. You're going to return to me. Very good. So the way of our life is decided in Akhirah. So ilayya marji'ukum, all of your return. And your, all, kum is a pronoun, plural masculine. In other words, not just your return, but your parents' return as well. Even though they are worshipping other than Allah, they're going to return to me as well. So this creates a concern for your parents as well, a concern for your family, and it wants you to have this concern in your heart so that you go out and propagate the teachings of Allah Ta'ala and teach them about the oneness of Allah. ثم إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. Okay, فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. أنبئ, like we said before, meant to mention some great important news. So أنبئكم, I will inform you بما كنتم تعملون, of what you used to do. So in other words, here is an explanation. This is the explanation of what is going to happen when you return back to Allah. In other words, returning back to Allah, it doesn't end there. You don't just go back to Allah. When you go back to Allah, there's going to be a whole process that you're going to have to go through. أنبئكم, I will inform you بما كنتم تعملون, with what you used to do. So in other words, with what you used to do, with what you used to say. So everything, your qawl, everything you used to say, everything you used to do with your limbs, how you treated your parents, how you dealt with the religion of Allah Ta'ala, how you obeyed Allah, did you ever disobey Allah? So Allah will inform you, أنبئكم, Allah says, بما كنتم تعملون. Okay, now you see that, let's look at how this fits in with before as well. So remember we said the theme so far was the theme of Luqman. And Luqman alayhi salam, he's giving his child advice. So when he's giving his child advice, he says to him, don't do shirk with Allah, because shirk is a great oppression. It's great injustice if you do it. So all of a sudden Allah brings these verses. Now these verses, they all fit in with that, the gravity of the shirk. Because the theme is gravity of shirk. So Allah wants to show, number one, He wants to show the importance of the parents, how important the parents are. But at the same time, Allah wants to show that Allah comes before parents. Allah is more important than the parents when it comes to obedience. And even though they command you to do something that goes against Allah, then you always have to remember that you can't treat them harshly. So you must treat them very kindly. And even though you try to treat them as kindly as possible, you have to live your religious life according to the way of those who return back to Allah. The ones who in their life spiritually return to Allah, who go back to Allah, obedience to Allah Ta'ala. And eventually it all comes down to a person remembering their account. That on the Day of Judgment, Allah will take us for all of us for account of what we do. So every single thing in this surah, it goes back down to the accountability. So this is advice that Allah Ta'ala He's given to us. And like we said in the beginning as well, that when you're giving someone advice, anyone you're giving advice, you must make sure that that person you're giving advice to has love for you. Just like the child has love for the parents. You must make sure that the child knows the status of the parents. The child must know the status of Allah, because if you're saying that a person doesn't do shirk, then the child might think to themselves, well, who is Allah? I don't know Allah Ta'ala. I don't recognize Allah Ta'ala. Just like a person, you go to a foreign country, and in that foreign country you have a president or a king, and you might see that president or king, but you have no respect for them. You don't know who they are. But someone who's from that country and knows that president or king, they'd have lots of respect for them. So likewise, when you have children, when you have grandchildren, whatever, you must inculcate in them the respect for Allah Ta'ala, and that Allah Ta'ala is the most important thing in that person's life. And committing shirk with Allah Ta'ala is tantamount to committing the greatest crime you can ever commit in the entire life, because your entire life is going to be questioned on the Day of Judgment. Okay, does that make sense, guys? Okay, so what lessons do we learn from this now? So lessons that we learn from this, is write a couple of lessons. Okay, number one lesson that we learn from this is that living as a child is not going to be easy. Okay, so having your relationship with your parents is not going to be easy. So no one's relationship with their parents is always easy. You are going to have difficult times. Your parents might not force you to commit shirk. That's a very extreme scenario, but they might tell you to do something else which is wrong. Or you might come into situations where you're in a dilemma of whether to disrespect your parents or respect your parents. So Allah lays down guidelines for that person. Okay, number two is to always remember that you have to find the path of those who reached Allah. The path of those who reached Allah is very important, and this makes it easier for us to live our life as well. So sometimes we hear about pious people, but we don't realize that they went through a lot of difficulties that we went through as well. So when you can relate to a pious person, when you can relate to someone who is close to Allah Ta'ala, then it's easy for a person to overcome their difficulties, like over here. Okay, any other things that you guys learned from this? Okay, judgment. Accountability for all. Very good. Tawheed. Okay, so care for the account of others too. Yeah, Allah doesn't use we when it's talking about shirk. Allah uses oneness. Yeah, you don't need pious people who can guide you, but you need to learn about their lives. That's important. Yeah, so Allah doesn't say follow the pious people. He says, follow the way of the pious people, the path of the pious people. In other words, study their lives, learn about them, learn about prophets, learn about Sahaba, learn about good people in the past. And you can, if you study their lives, you can see a lot of common denominators in your life and their life. Makes it easy to get onto the right path. Yeah, having full respect, reverence for Allah Ta'ala and parents as well. Balancing it, that's the important thing. Balancing respect for Allah, for parents, and obedience to Allah. Yeah, so you got to show your parents obedience, but at the same time, for Allah Ta'ala as well, you have to have full, utter respect. Qualities of the pious, adopting the qualities of the pious, following their path. Remember, following their path, you have to know where they stepped as well, what kind of mistakes they made and how they overcame it. And sometimes the thing about following pious people is that we look at the pious person, we see the end of their life, and we want to be like them straight away. But we don't know that they've been through this whole process, years and years of difficulties. Then they reach that level, Allah gave them that status. So, looking into the early days of the pious as well is good. So you can see that they were normal people, they went through normal problems that we had. They all attempt to constantly return to Allah Ta'ala. And how do you always constantly return to Allah Ta'ala? You have to have it in your mind that you're going to be taken to account for. Always, every day, remind yourself that tomorrow I'm going to be questioned, the day of judgment. That always keeps you stable. Okay, excellent, mashallah. Very good answers.